Coming up on iOS Today, I'm joined by James Thomson to talk about his fabulous apps PCalc and Dice, as well as learn about some really cool Easter eggs.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 692, recorded Tuesday, 27th of February for Thursday, 29th of February, 2024. James Thomson and Easter eggs in PCalc and Dice. Hello and welcome to iOS Today, where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePod OS, shortcuts, and of course, Vision OS, including Vision Pro. I'm Rosemary Orchard, and Micah Sargent is not here this week, but that's okay because I've got my friend and fabulous indie app developer, James Thomson, with me. Hi, James.
Hi, it's nice to be here. I feel like I've been replacing Micah all week on various shows.
Well, that is what happens when you have to go and deal with your civic duties. But it kind of worked out pretty well for us because we were planning on getting you on the show anyway to talk about app development. This is something new that we're going to be doing here on iOS Today, where once a month or every couple of months, we're planning on getting a smaller app developer in to talk about their apps and, you know, the cool things that they've got and maybe even share some Easter eggs. And of course, PCalc for me had to be the obvious starting point because when Micah said Easter eggs, I went, PCalc's big Easter egg kind of turned into its whole own thing. So of course, it's the perfect thing to talk about that. And I believe PCalc may be one of it's been around for a very long time now because you recently celebrated the Mac 30 anniversary with it. And it is a true cross-platform app. So why don't we start, James, by you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into app development, perhaps, before we dive into the cool things that you can do with your apps?
Wow, how did I get into app development? Well, I guess it started because I grew up in the age of the personal computer becoming a thing. And so I was always semi-obsessed about this. And I really wanted to learn to program because I wanted to write video games. That was the thing. And the example that I always give of this is that there's a game on the Commodore 64, which is an old computer for those who are younger. And it is a game called Revenge of the Mutant Camels. And on the title screen of that game, it said, by Jeff Minter. And I was like, wait, so one person just makes this thing? It's a person and they can make stuff. And that was the starting point of the gears turning in my, 10-year-old brain of I could do this. This could be a living. So I ended up doing a degree in computing science some time ago. I shall not go into the years. And as part of that, we ended up, we were doing programming on Macs because the labs were all Macs. And we had Think Pascal, which was a very nice little development environment, written in part by Rich Siegel, who some people may have heard of. And it was one of the things I noticed while playing with it, and we were doing all our exercises of, we were doing one of the things was drawing stuff with Quick Draw, so drawing circles and whatever. And I was like, wait, all the Mac development libraries are here. I could just make something. I had no idea how to make something at this point, but I went and I bought a bunch of books out of the subsidized student bookshop. And I ended up with the Inside Macintosh books. And I'm like, all right, I need to write something. What shall I write? I will pick something very simple, which I will write. It'll take me a couple of weeks and I will never think about it again. And I decided I would make a calculator because I wanted one for doing hex and binary and things like that, which the Apple calculator at that point was a little 4x5 grid of numbers that didn't do very much. It was a desk accessory. And so I made a calculator and I put it out into the world in December of 1992. thinking, right, that's it. I will never do anything else with this product. And that didn't happen. And so whenever I was trying to learn something new, I would basically rewrite PCalc as a small example of a let's learn a thing. And so like when macOS 10 came around, before I did Drag Thing for macOS 10, which was another app I did back in the day, that I would prototype stuff out and, just port PCalc, get it up and running, see what worked and what didn't. And so when the iPhone was coming out, how many years ago now are we talking? I can't remember. Whenever the iOS SDK came out, it was either 2007 or 2008, and time is a long time ago. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll port PCalc to it, because at that point I had various versions of PCalc, and it was easy to sort of extract the maths bits out, and so I slapped them into a little test app on iOS and got that running in a day. I didn't have a phone at that point, and I got PCalc out day one of the App Store for iOS. And I believe it's been out it's been out longer on iOS than it was on macOS when the iOS version came out. We've just crossed over that point of, like the iOS version is actually accounting for more than 50% of the lifespan of the product, which is terrifying. And I guess since then I have hit day one of the App Store for every single app store that Apple has done, I think.
Wow. That is pretty impressive, because of course, I've got PCalc here on my iPhone, which I can pull up to show folks. It's just a great app that is just always there. And of course, the iOS built-in calculator has come a long way. But PCalc has just been a constant, at least for me. I Googled it just to be sure. So originally when the iPhone was announced, which was in 2007, of course, it didn't have apps, because Steve Jobs said, web applications, go web. It's like, okay, that's fine. And then in October 2007, they did announce that there would be a software development kit available for developers by February 2008. And it actually came out in March 2008. So they missed their deadline. They didn't follow their usual under promise and over deliver. But, if you've been on the iPhone since 2008, that is going to be one of the longest running apps around, I believe, on iPhone, because a lot of apps do just, Flappy Bird. They disappear, right? And it's a shame.
I mean, it was somewhere towards 500 apps on the first day of the App Store. And PCalc was one of those. And there was very few others from that day that are still going. I mean, I think there's a few. But so I take some stubborn pleasure in porting it to everything that I can. And it's still a really good way to learn something. Like if you're, trying to work through them all in my head. So we have, iPhone, iPad, Apple TV came along. And it's kind of like iOS development, but it's slightly different.
Apple Watch.
Apple Watch, which was really weird at the start, because all the brain ran on the phone, and then it was just a user interface running on the watch. And then eventually you could run your own code on the watch. And the Mac App Store came along at some point in this. There's been a variety of different kinds of widgets, some of which I support, some of which I don't. And am I missing one? Well, Apple Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. I mean, you didn't develop a PCalc for the Newton, I take it, but I have subsequently got hold of a copy of the Newton software development kit, and there, if I had copious amounts of free time, then it's not impossible that I could have done it. So, we'll see.
That might happen. Maybe for the 40th anniversary.
Well, it's a couple of years to go before then. But yeah, so obviously, PCalc started as a Mac app, and we will talk about your other apps in a moment because there's more than just PCalc. But is there a favorite feature that you have inside of PCalc, for example, or a little Easter egg that didn't get moved into its own separate application? Perhaps we'll come back to that in a moment. Because one of my favorite features, I have to say, is the tape. So if I, do some multiplications, which I'm apparently failing to type. So if I type 6 times 7 and then I multiply it by 103 and so on, then I actually have the tape. And I can go back and look at it. And I mean, I was a nerdy kid. I'll grant that. And I always wanted one of those calculators that printed out like the tape at the top. I thought that would be really cool. And I never got one. But now I have a virtual one, and it's honestly much more useful this way because I can actually see exactly what it is that I did and even share. And I love the fact that you can copy the tape and share it or add it as a note or something, because that, has actually genuinely made my life much easier at various points in time.
I think like the one thing that I do, which I think probably 0.1% of people actually use, but I think is the coolest, is the layout editing stuff. So with that, you just press and hold on any key for a few seconds. And then it will switch into a mode. Well, it'll ask you first. And it will switch into a mode where you can move keys around, resize, add new ones, and it's like a whole like little mini editor, and you can set up keys that do like a very specific conversion. So if you do like converting pounds to dollars and back again very often, you can pick that as a thing and make a key for it.
That is very cool. I did not realize this feature was even there. I feel so ashamed of myself, James.
Well, like I said, 0.1%. And, that you can even launch shortcuts off this. I will point out there is a thing where you can trigger a shortcut from a key. And it's kind of like a neat little thing. And it's how I now build, like if I'm doing a new layout or whatever, I will actually use PCalc to make the actual layout itself. I have a weird pleasure in using my apps to build my apps. I do this in Dice a lot as well. Like I use Dice as a mode in it where it will render out all the graphics that the app needs, like all the little thumbnails for Dice themes and stuff. It's not in the build that regular people have, but I just like the fact that I can use my code to build the thing. Anyway, yes, that's kind of like that's the feature that I think is the most hidden and the most fun. And Easter eggs. I mean, if you want an Easter egg, the one we were talking about before, well, not the spin-off one, but I put in a thing a long time ago into PCalc as a joke, which was censorship. So if you type a rude word, calculator word, you're going for the classic there. And you turn your phone upside down, and
I'll have to disable rotation lot 4, and I'm not sure how well this will show up on.
We can try it.
It's unfortunately not working on the projected version, but it is working on my local version on my actual phone. Yes, it censors it. Why does it do that, James?
So this was like, I can't remember when I did this. I think it was fairly early on in the App Store, and there was a lot of talk about Apple censoring things. Like you couldn't put an app on the App Store that was in any way racy, shall we say, or various things. And Apple seemed to be going a bit too far on this. And there was a lot of people getting rejected by App Review for whatever. So I, as a joke, and as a like marketing stunt of some degree, did a thing so that I said, well, because Apple is censoring stuff to so I don't get in trouble, need to make the app 18 plus. I'm going to censor all these rude words so you can't see these rude words. And it made slightly more sense at the time because I think PCalc was using the, LCD font. So,
I have
classic.
just managed to get it to work, by the way, so we can actually show. I've now got my phone. It's upside down and it says hi there because I typed 0.1134, which also works with 0.7734, by the way. Thank you for that.
Sorry, it says hi there for any word that is not deemed to be bad. And I did this and I wrote up a little jokey blog post about it saying that, I was doing this to sort of avoid Apple, whatever. And I thought it was very funny. And, I put it out and a number of people kind of wrote it up like the Register or whatever in a jokey fashion, like realizing that this was satirical. And the thing with any form of satire is as soon as it gets far enough away from you, people start to think that it's not satire and it's actually real. And so I ended up getting written up in I think it was like the Daily Mirror and various other things saying it's disgraceful, Apple is making people do this, or and I got people would write to me saying I am never using your app again, and I'm going to tell everybody else not to use it because you're capitulating to censorship. And I was like, oh no, this is unfortunately escaped. And so yes, there's an article up on my blog called Going Viral, which talks about this. And I did add there is a secret option if you go into the advanced settings while your phone is upside down.
Oh, okay. So I need to leave my phone upside down and go into settings, change back, and go to advanced.
Which, yes, scrolling up and down is always fun when you're not the right way up. So in the advanced section of the settings, which should be
somewhere. I can read upside down, but there we go. I found advanced settings. Go me.
Yeah. And then you go to the very bottom or top, depending on how you're looking at it. And then there's a censorship, and then and you can switch off the censorship, which is a thing that I, to this day, still have to tell people when they write App Store reviews complaining about the censorship, over whatever it is, 13 years later. I should really just take it out, but
it's a fun little Easter egg, to be honest, and let's face it, there's some history in there of, accidentally, making various different news sources. Of course, those in the know understood the satire, but those not in the know did not, which is sadly often the case with these things. But yes, I'm actually very pleased to report that in the live chat, Chickenhead21 has just said that their daughter, who's 12, has her entire maths class using PCalc, which is pretty impressive. There's a lot of users with a lot of love for this app.
I did PCalc Lite at one point, kind of as a free app, no advertising. And you could, eventually I put some in-app purchases so you could buy the functionality of the full app. But I did that partially so that there was a free version that could be used in settings like a school or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of schools that have iPads and have no calculator. And every now and again, I get on one day, somebody buys in quotes 40,000 copies of PCalc Lite because it's just been deployed across an entire school district, and that makes me happy that it's being used. I was looking at the analytics yesterday, to see what the split is between full PCalc and PCalc Lite, and it's almost 50-50, slightly ahead on the PCalc Lite, but there was a surprisingly large number of people using it in a week, and I was like, oh no, people actually do use my software. That is one of the things, just as a digression, is when I was at just after I think I'd left university, I got asked by one of my human interface lecturers if I wanted to work on a project that they were doing. And it's like, okay, yeah, could do. And he said, yeah, it's a project which it's to make an app, although I think it was running on a Palm Pilot at the time, to calculate the amount of anesthetic to give to people when they're going under for operations. And I'm like, nope, I don't want to be involved because this sounds like this is, I don't want to, yeah, it's scary. And fast forward like some 15, 20, more than 20 years later. And I was getting featured in the App Store, and Apple said, what do people use PCalc for? And I'm like, I have no idea, because I just make a calculator and I put it out into the world and there's no analytics whatsoever. So I don't know what people use it for. And we can have the analytics conversation in a sec. But I was like, I don't want to know anything about what people are doing. I mean, in that sense. And so I don't know. So I like said, like put out a question of like, what do people use this for? And I think it was a friend of Kathy Campbell's came back and said, oh, we use PCalc for calculating the amount of anesthetic to give to children. And I'm like, oh no, this is worse. This is worse than the thing I was trying to get away from.
That is scary. I use it for calculating my board game scores and things like that.
Like that. I like that.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can end up doing with a calculator. Calculating anesthetic sounds very scary to me.
Worse than that, we sold copies of PCalc to the White Sands facility in the US. And White Sands is the facility that maintains the nuclear stockpile. So, like that's another, like while, children is one thing, nuclear missiles, I don't really like the sound of that. I mean, I don't necessarily think that PCalc was involved in this. It could be like calculating the how much they've spent on buying Coca-Cola or something. So, but it was just the fact that came up in the purchasing thing, and I was like, now it's good. Now the App Store, I have no idea who's buying my software, so I don't have to worry.
Yes. And I'm guessing that there's a certain level of comfort for you as a developer that while you could add analytics to your application, you have no requirements to do so or to track your users or anything like that. So, PCalc is a fabulous, really solid app, as are all of your apps. But I know that when I'm using it, you're not tracking that every time I get a new version, I open it up and I immediately go 6 times 7 and just double check for you that it still equals 42. Because, I think that's a good use case, right?
I mean, I do that a lot myself. It's like, if it can multiply 6 times 7, then a lot of stuff is working. I mean, do more tests than that, of course, but that is a good kind of base level. But yeah, I just don't want to know things. And there was a case that came up a while ago. I added alternate app icons because I like doing things and sometimes they get away from me, which is why I think there's something like 52 alternate app icons in the app at this point. One of the things that I did was I think it was the Apple 6-color, the old Apple logo 6-color thing. And I got feedback from a number of people who were like, using this as a kind of stealth pride flag. And I'm like, well, I can just add a pride flag. So I added, basic pride flag. And then I had, I think possibly even Micah say, can you add this flag? Can you add this flag? And then it was a case of that expanded out quite rapidly. And I learned a lot about flags. and a lot about the history, because the names of each flag is the person who designed that flag. Mm-hmm. And I was later on, I had all these icons, and I was thinking it would be really good to know, like, what are the popular icons? Because I was looking at making t-shirts, and I was like, I would like to know which are the popular ones, and then I could make t-shirts of those icons. This sounds a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And then I thought about it some more, and I was like, no, because what I would actually, in effect, be doing is getting analytics on sexual orientation of my users. That sounds like a terrible piece of information to have, particularly it's not the kind of information that, I want somebody in a courtroom saying you have to reveal which users, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, we're doing no analytics because I don't want to know. And Apple does some. So like, as part of the OS, there is basic stuff like I can find out how many people have launched the apps. How many people have I think they call it a session, which is like opening the app and using it for more than a couple of seconds. I was like, okay. So I can see basic stuff like that, and I can see if it's crashing and where it's crashing, but literally nothing else. And I think this is a good way of doing it. Also, there are literally no third-party SDKs in there, so no other people are silently recording stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Which is something that's really great to know, because it's very easy to take something, say, like Google has created as a library, or that, some very lovely, helpful person on the internet has created as a library, but you have to actually know if it's reporting data back to them or not. So by having written everything yourself, it's not reporting anything except to you through Apple, which is minimal.
Yeah, I mean, there is a small amount of third-party code in there that I've got source code for so that I know what it's doing. But it's things like, calculate how similar this word is to this other word and things like that. So, but yeah, no giant monolithic evil SDKs. So.
Well, that is great to hear. And you mentioned Micah before, and Micah having made a request. And you have another app, which you made, and I'm not 100% certain exactly whose fault this was. And I'm willing to take some responsibility for this, because there's shiny, pretty rainbows involved. And that's dice, because you have an application for rolling dice. And I believe this was originally created for the Dungeons and Dragons podcast called Total Party Kill, which you and I have both guested on previously, and Micah is a regular host on, actually.
Yeah, so I was on this way back, and we had the first group, and it was mostly British people, so like Mike Hurley and Adina and myself, but also Jason Snell was on it. And at one point during that, because I had started messing around with 3D stuff, which for reasons we will come back to, and Jason said, "I'm surprised you haven't written a dice app yet." And I thought, well, that sounds like an interesting idea. I give myself a week. I will make a dice app. And it took me 2 weeks, but I did ship it to the store in 2 weeks, which I was impressed at myself for like a small scope project that didn't completely get out of hand. Then after that, it got completely out of hand. And it was I wish to learn more things about 3D graphics and how to do things with an eye to a possible headset appearing. And I had started playing with 3D graphics in 2016, which shows you how long there has been rumors of an Apple 3D headset. And this was another thing where I was like, so I'll make dice. I'll make a couple of different sets. And now there's like over 50 different dice themes. And it's a very calming thing to just sit and design the look of a set of dice. And it's something you could do in an afternoon if you aren't feeling particularly motivated to do anything else. And I may have bought some professional texturing software as used by, the likes of Ubisoft or whatever when they're making Assassin's Creed games, but I just use it to make dice.
Well, that's fair enough. And, this is not just a dice app, because you could have just created a dice app. Oh, wow. I managed to roll a 1. See, it's got an Easter egg in it. I rolled a 1 and it said critical fail, because if I was rolling a D20, which I am in D&D, which I'm not playing at the moment, and I rolled a 1, that would be a complete and utter fail, and I would not succeed at whatever it was I was trying to do. But you've done more than that. So I just changed the theme of my dice a second ago to add that D20. But if I also add, say, a D8 in here, then I can see I've got a nice total, and there's a little reroll button, and I can see now my total's 20. And the fact that you have added everything up like this for us. And, I can do things like roll with advantage, which is very useful if you are trying to, play Dungeons and Dragons. I can see my total's 26. Woo, go me. Or I can roll with disadvantage. Let's see how badly I do this time. 13. That's very unlucky. Wow. It's almost like you planned that. But I swear I downloaded the App Store version just to make sure that James hadn't sneakily put something into the version that I was going to show off today. But yeah, that you've put things in here just to make it easier for those folks who are playing games like this, which is really nice. But it's also quite pleasing to just, roll the dice and see where they fall.
Also, if you click the keyboard button and you type 100 ducks and press return, it should, in theory...
if I use the right keyboard, 100 ducks. Yep. Ta-da! 100 ducks.
Because you never know when you might need 100 ducks.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as there isn't a Dread Gazebo in here, which is a Dungeons and Dragons reference I'm sure some of you will know about, then I think we'll probably be okay. But yes, I love the fact that even the ducks spin, which is great. And you mentioned, James, that you've been experimenting with 3D for a while, and we are going to talk to you in the next episode about developing in 3D and what that has, done for you, because you've got a whole app which is about 3D experiments. And of course, Vision Pro has just come out, and I know a lot of our users are very interested in the Vision Pro and what developing for that's been like, especially because, rather like earlier where you mentioned the first PCalc for iPhone app, you didn't actually have an iPhone at the time. Vision Pro has not been available for most people at all yet. So that's going to be quite exciting. But yes, is there a little Easter egg inside of this, aside from 100 ducks, that you could share with us? Is it possible to change the color of the ducks by writing 100 purple ducks, for example?
No, you can change the color of the ducks. Can I remember if there's a purple duck? If there's not a purple duck, of course, I'll have to add one now for you.
I apologize for accidentally giving you homework.
But okay, what's a good? Okay. So we may talk about screens. If you tap on the gear icon and you scroll pretty much all the way to the bottom of the top section, which has a lot of hidden kind of settings, there should be an about in there somewhere. There is. If you select that, it will have a thing, and
very pretty.
If you tap on the screen. And then you can go through this and you can change different kinds of dice, and you can pick the different scenes, and each scene is effectively an After Dark style screensaver module. So I went slightly overdid it. And yes, I made this thing, and there's 20 odd different modules or just 3D things, and you can change, you can switch between dice and other objects and have them all flying around.
I love that the coin says "Don't panic" on it, which ties into 42 being life, the universe, and everything, and of course the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes, and the reason. Just to digress, because that's what this podcast is. The reason that it has 42 on it is that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is one of my most favored I was going to say book, but, multimedia project, I guess. And Douglas Adams actually was a beta tester on DragThing, which was an application doc that I wrote for the Mac 1994-ish. And he was a beta tester, and I added some, in fact, automation features to it for him because he wanted support for the Frontier scripting language. And, he was like, could you do this? And I'm like, of course I will, Douglas. And then, I added that whole thing for him. And I talked back and forth with him, a little amount. And I met him once, and he was very gracious in, having any idea who I was. And so, like, the 42, there was always a 42 on the icon of PCalc, but it was a lot smaller back in the day, and it just got kind of bigger and bigger. And it is there as a tribute to Douglas, who died in 2001, I think. And I had been due to meet him, and he died just before WWDC, and I was going to meet him at WWDC. Oh. And that was, that hit me really hard. But anyway, that's why there's a 42 everywhere. It was really a kind of a tribute to him. And it's just a nice little thing. And now people associate it with me. Well, at least some people do. And I like to just carry it on as a thing. It's a good number.
Yes, it is an excellent number. I should know. I've been trying to hold my phone still because if you're, if you're in the about screen of PCalc and you're using the default scene, as you move your phone or iPad, I presume as well, because it's got the same sort of sensors in it, then it will actually adjust the view of exactly what it is like that the dice are doing, which is very cool. And
it will do that in the main screen as well. If you're looking at the tray and it's like, particularly if it's zoomed in, and it does the kind of like, as you tilt it, it lets you, it looks like you've got a 3D view into it. So it's kind of a very early augmented reality type of a thing. But yes, I love just playing with hardware when there's a feature available, something like motion sensors or whatever. It's like, well, what can I do with that that's fun? So yeah, so Dice, yes, it is a full featured Dice app, but it is also a thing that I play with when I'm stressed, and add stuff to.
Oh, that is entirely fair, and it is a lovely app. Both of these apps are great, and we will talk about the third app that you have on the iOS and iPadOS and tvOS, of course, App Store in our next episode, because it's all relevant to Vision Pro. And I know it's not an app that you have immediately thrown up onto Vision Pro, but yeah, maybe we'll see that one in the not too distant future.
I mean,
either way.
Yes, there are possible things happening on that front.
Now, James, I am very excited to ask you to join me for Shortcuts Corner because, of course, you have developed some shortcuts actions in your time. You've played with HomeKit and so on. So it feels like we should talk about shortcuts in Shortcuts Corner. Okay. So in today's Shortcuts Corner, we have a question that has come in from Owen. And it's officially, James, to myself and Micah, but, you're here as the guest host. So you're unofficially being put onto this. And Owen has said, "Hi, Rosemary and Micah. I am a long-time viewer of many of the Twit podcasts and Club Twit member. I love all the shows I watch and learn so much from you all." Thank you very much, Owen. We do all appreciate that here at Twit. He then continues, "I am trying to write a shortcut for HomeKit, but it gets stuck without being able to get it to do what I ultimately desire. I just want Shortcuts and Apple HomeKit to let me know someone has triggered the motion sensor, turn on the light if it's dark out, notify me on my iPhone, and then turn the light off after 5 minutes. Thanks for your help. I have added some pics for the pet tags, our big puppy Buttercup, some Connors, parrots, Ruby and Roger, and Sunny and Cher. There are more birds, parakeets, finches, and quail, but this email would not make it through the servers with so many pics. And so if we could see maybe the pictures of Buttercup to start with and see what a good dog she is, perhaps. There we go. Oh, look at Buttercup. Isn't she adorable? Oh, so cute. And then we've also got some parrots. So Ruby and Roger, and then Sonny and Cher. Oh, they're so cute with all the green. Oh, adorable. And there we go, Sonny and Cher as well. So vibrant, lovely, and orange with yellow tints and hints. Cool. So I need to start by creating an automation. Now, Owen did include some more details in the original email, which is that he's using an Aqara FP1 motion sensor, which is a really cool human presence sensor, motion sensor. So it's not just looking specifically to see if like something is moved, but it's looking for people. And so I'm going to start by opening shortcuts and creating an automation. Now you could also do this in the HomeKit app. I have a lot of accessories in the Home app. So if I create an automation, scrolling down for the convert to shortcut button takes a little while. So when I tap on the plus in the automation tab to create a shortcut, I'm not going to select any of these options. What I want is to scroll right to the bottom and tap on create a home automation. And I have multiple homes here. So I'm going to choose the specific home that I want to create it in. And then we have our different triggers. So we've got people arriving or leaving, times of day, an accessory being controlled, i.e. a light is being turned on, or a sensor detecting something. And specifically, Owen wants when motion is detected on the back porch, for there to be a notification of some kind. And this is where it is going to be a little bit tricky because there isn't a native way to just send a notification, but we will get to that in a moment. So I was just looking for a motion sensor, and I have motion sensors in all the rooms, and I'm just, there we go, not seeing the right ones. So I am going to use my sensor in my kitchen, and I'm going to use detects occupancy as my trigger. And then yep. Still have to do all the scrolling down and tap on convert to shortcut. So we've already got our trigger now, which is that, motion has been detected. So I'm going to delete the action that they automatically add. And then I'm going to just add an if in here because what we need to do is do something with the date. But just using the date is kind of tricky. So what I'm going to do here actually is format the date. And now we get to the time of day where it's apparently dark here. So my phone has just turned dark. I'll just turn that back to light. So I'm going to change this. So I'm going to format the current date. Now there's two different ways that you can do this. And I don't know if you have a preferred method, James, because what you could do with date formatting is you could get, for example, AM or PM as a date format, or you could get a specific time. Well, what we need to know actually is if it is after sunset. So I've just realized that I was calculating this wrong because I was thinking about it in terms of if it's afternoon, which is not very helpful because afternoon is not when it's dark. So we can use the
Unless
weather.
you're in Scotland, in which case it sometimes is.
That could be true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the weather action to do this. And I will get the details of our current weather conditions. So to start with, I'm getting the current weather, and then I'm going to get the sunset time. Cool. And so I'm going to say if the current date is after, and then when you tap on the date, it just pops up a date specifically. But if you tap and hold, and this is one of the sneaky things in shortcuts, then you can select something and look at that. I've already got sunset time there because that's coming from above. So if it's after sunset time, then I want to control, and it shows me an action called control the name of my home. And I'm just going to select, gosh, I've got a lot of scenes in here. I'm just going to turn on the light panels in my living room. And so I'll need to make sure that those turn on. And there we go. Okay, so to start with, we have got the time that it's after a certain time and we're turning on the light. That's a good start. And then what Owen has done in the example that he sent through is to actually use well, he said he's using speak text, but if I look for speak, there is no speak action because shortcuts, when it's for HomeKit, isn't running on your iPhone. It's actually running somewhere else. But there should be the option to use the announce feature, which is not showing up for me right now, which is very, very frustrating. But there is the announce on HomePod. No. So sending a notification is the tricky bit. And I don't know if, James, you had experience with this, because what I usually end up doing is using something like pushcut, which means I have to use a get contents of URL, which is kind of tricky. But there are potentially some other ways to notify somebody at home that this is what you're trying to do or what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I ran into this as well, and I didn't come up with a particularly great solution to it because, as you say, the stuff is running, probably on a HomePod or something. So it doesn't have things like you can't send yourself a message or anything like that. So
yeah, well,
I mean, I'm thinking like, can you play a particular music track that indicates?
Yeah, you actually could. And people have done this before where they've actually recorded or even had iOS or macOS speak specific words and have that converted into an audio file, which if you upload it to Apple Music, you can then play through a HomePod.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use Pushcut. Now, full disclosure, I'm one of the developers who works on this app. But I've just created a sample notification in Pushcut. And at the moment, the notification will just say something happened, tap or expand me to reveal my automation actions. But I'm just going to copy the URL here, because what you can do, and this is our it's almost a get out of jail free card, but it's not really. But you can get contents of URL inside of a HomeKit action. And then I can actually use this. So now, and it is after sunset, because remember, folks, as we were recording this, my phone went from light mode to dark mode. Did I plan that? A little bit. And so if I run this, then it'll turn on the light panels in my living room, which is taking a little while. And then once that's done, there we go. It does get contents of URL, and ta-da, I have a notification right here telling me something happened. Dun, 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 which is exactly what will happen here. Now, the other part that Owen wanted was then after 5 minutes for the porch light to turn off. Now, you can add a wait, and I would suggest trying this. Has a little trick, by the way. There is a fabulous little number action where you can type in a number. You can also calculate something, but I happen to know that 300 seconds is 5 minutes. So I'm going to tap and hold on the wait, and I'm just going to select that number so that I don't have to tap plus 300 times to wait, because that would be very, very frustrating. And then you can use, and I'm just going to actually duplicate this and drag this one down here. So I'm going to control exactly the same things again, and I will turn those light panels off. But there is a little alternative to this, which I'm just going to save that automation. And in the Home app, if you create a scene, then what you can do, and I will just call that leave home for the time being, and I'll turn on those same light panels. When you have an automation turn something on, for example, so when oops, that's not the right button. When I add a automation, boom, 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 and sensor detects something, because what you can also do here, there we go. Where did it go? I have lost okay, I'll just use the sensor instead. So when it detects motion, I can actually say specifically at night as a trigger limitation. That's also quite useful. So I can say, okay, when motion is detected, then I want to turn on the scene. There it is, leave home. And then there is a turn off after 5 minutes. So you may actually, thinking about this, I want to split this into two automations. One, to turn the light on using a scene. So you create a scene to turn on the light, and then have that turn off after 5 minutes. And a second automation, which you convert to shortcut, to send yourself a notification, because then you can actually send yourself a notification at any time and just have the light come on if it's dark. So I think that is probably the solution that I would use for that. Do you have any final notes or thoughts on that, James?
My only thought was, if you want it to seem like it's not automated and there's actually a person there, why not use a fine product like Dice by PCalc, which you can roll a D20 in and then turn the light after that many minutes, So
I mean, if only the HomeKit shortcut sections supported using actions from lovely things like PCalc, that would be fabulous. Sadly, that's not possible. But you could just use the day of the week, for example, turn it off after 1 minute on a Monday and after 5 minutes on a Friday and 7 minutes on a Sunday. That would probably seem pretty random to most folks.
I think there are other ways of generating random numbers probably that are can be used in this situation. It was just a silly thought.
Yes. Well, it's a lovely, silly thought. And thank you very much for telling us about PCalc and Dice today so far, James. If folks want to find you and follow you online, what is the best place to go for them to do that?
Probably the place where I hang out the most is on Mastodon. And I'm ashamed to say that the URL to get to there is if you go to onlyjames.fans, that will take you to my Mastodon account. I did this to so I could have so that Micah would hear that, but he's not here. So anyway, that one was for you, Micah. But other than that, PCalc.com has got all the apps, and that's probably what I'm best really known for. It's all the PCalc family of software.
Well, that is wonderful. Thank you very much. And if folks want to find and follow me online, then all the links are on rosemaryorchard.com as always. There's books, podcasts, apps, etc., and of course, social media sites. And in the meantime, we will be back next week with another episode, also with James, because we're recording these two together, where we are going to be talking all about Vision Pro app development and some of the cool things that James has been finding out in that. So we'll see you again next week, folks.
See you then.